Well, hello there, Minecrafters. Thanks for coming by. We are back in Creative Control today. That is a series I started a little while ago, and I kind of left it for a bit just because I've been really busy with Diversity 2, and actually I've been watching a lot of Let's Plays. So it's a lot of hours of getting to see people play the map. But we're back in the Creative Control. That's the map making series for map makers by a map maker. That's where I talk about little tips and tricks and things that might help you, or possibly just refresh what you already know. So before we get into episode 4 today, just wanted to go over a few of the comments from the last episode. This was quite a while ago. First one, now, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right. 90 Ayansa, could be Ninty Ayansa. Says, I'm pretty sure mobs cannot spawn on upper half slabs. Upper half slabs. Which one of us is right? Okay, so there's no such thing as a half slab, but the question is, if a slab is like this, see how it's the upper side of a half of a block, so it's I guess an upper slab. The mobs apparently cannot spawn in here. Well, they actually can. Mojang changed that quite a while ago. Mobs can spawn on top of there. I kind of just briefly went over that last time. They cannot spawn on a half block like that. And bats have to spawn underneath a full block as well. Like, they have to spawn like on that. They can't spawn like on a half block like that. So basically, any block you want to do that with, any slab is going to eliminate mobs from spawning on the top if it's a half. And that's pretty cool. You can, again, I talked about this last time, you can kind of control unwanted mobs in your map that way, if you choose to do it that way. I got another question from, this one I'm not going to be able to pronounce, but Hatsejima. I have a question. If I'm in multiplayer and there's a command with @p, I'm standing next to the command block, my friend is 3 blocks away and he's pressing the button. So basically, what happens? Who gets the command? Well, that is basically part of what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about clocks and how to trigger them to certain players and give them certain criteria. So we're going to head back into the main Creative Control world, and I'll see you over there. Alright guys, we are back in the Creative Control world. So much nostalgia here, and today we're going to be talking about these selectors here and some arguments. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into different clock types you can use. But before we start anything, we got to talk about the comparator. This thing is awesome. And when I first heard about it 1.5, I was told about the, well, basically from YouTube videos going on about the subtraction mode and addition mode, and I still actually don't understand it entirely. But basically with redstone dust, you can set a different output depending on what you put into it. And for me, I really had no use for that, but I found out, as many people know, that comparators can pull off a command. Basically, we put a command in here. So if I wanted to do a test for myself, if it can activate, we can set off a command, and then we can have some sort of output. So we could say like say, how do I do that? Is it? I haven't used say in a long time. I'm gonna use tell raw. Tell raw at a key magnet is here, if I could spell properly. So yeah, we'll just refresh that. Ooh, not good. And there it goes in the bottom there. You can see there, it's here, it activated. If I just change that, okay. So now, because it cannot activate, we can't do that. But if it can activate, there we go. QMagnet is here. Now, it doesn't have to be a true or false. It doesn't have to be a test for. It just has to be a command that gets activated. We can even do it with a say command, really. I don't know why you do it with a say command. But the point is, we're activating a command. You can see there, we've got a hi command, or it says hi, and then also our tell raw there. Now, that's really important to understand how that works, because you will get a little confused if you don't realize that there are many commands that you can put off a comparator. You can put a clear command. It doesn't have to be something that's true or false. It's just that if that command in here can be activated, it will activate this comparator, and then you can put your signal out this way. Okay, so where does that get us? Well, moving on from the say command, we're going to talk a little bit about these P, R, A, and E commands. And they pretty much all can be to players, but some of them can be to non-players. So the P is, I believe, stands for player, but basically you're picking one person here as nearest player. R actually now works with, this needs to be changed because now it works with entities if you specify what type of entity. A is all players. I'm not sure if it counts dead players. And then E is all entities. So with E, we can actually target mobs and things like that. So how is that going to work? Well, let me show you. We're going to do a test for command. We're going to test for anybody in the world. And if there is anybody in the world, we are going to set a block. Let's set one. Now, this is relative coordinates here. So basically, this tilde here, or squiggly, is right where the command block is. We're going to go 2 higher than the command block, or 2 blocks higher than the command block. And this is also right where, on the X and the Z axis, it's exactly where the command block is. So we've set block 1. We're going to do, let's do a, let's do a slime block. Is it slime block or is it slime? I'm not sure. So what we're going to do is we're going to test for anybody. If there's somebody there and it must be slime. Set block slime. Let's try it again. And that we can't do that. Okay, hold on a second. Ugh! There we go. Slime block is slime. Okay, so we've tested for somebody. We have another command. We test for that. If we test for something else, so we could test for an entity, and we could actually pick a type equals creeper. What's going to happen is, if I do this, there is no creeper in this world where we can test this command block. So this little thing here is an argument. Basically, whatever comes before it, we're going to do that command to this thing if this criteria is met. So we are going to activate a test for command at an entity if it's a creeper. So the way we can do that is if we summon creeper. We've got one here. I press that, and you can see it activates this command because we had a creeper. If we kill the creeper, and the same thing, you can do it in your chat bar, type equals creeper. We've killed it, and we do that, and there we go. We have it goes off because there is no creeper. Kind of basic, kind of makes sense, hopefully. Now, with that knowledge here, what we also want to talk about is the P. The P is always the nearest player to where the command gets activated. So most of the time, commands get activated at the command block, but with the execute command, execute at A, this means it's going to execute at every player, wherever they are. It's going to do this command. So you've got to keep in mind, do you want your commands to execute at the player? If not, if you want to execute at the command block, you leave it out. And we also have the R, which is a random player, or we can actually do it at a random, we can do it at a random entity. So I'm going to do a creeper there. I'm going to summon a bunch of creepers. Summon a creeper, just spread them out. And what we're going to do is we are going to randomize. We're going to let's teleport them. So we can use the teleport command at R. So we're going to do it at a random type equals creeper, and we're going to just shoot them up in the air 10 blocks. So here we go, and there we go. We got that one up. Next time, it's the same one. It's the same one. Okay, and so I thought it was random, but maybe it's not. Should be random at a creeper, but I'm not sure. It seems to be picking the same one all the time. That one. No, there we go. That's more random. Okay, so that was weird how it happened at the beginning there. But anyway, it's totally random. Basically, it could be any of those creepers or anything you want. I think if you leave it at R, it just picks a person. I don't think it picks a... yeah, it automatically defaults to a person unless you add that specific criteria. And we can even do item. You can do an item if you want. So if we drop an item, a couple items on the ground, those are what items are. There we go. There's one up there. Yeah, the command block keeps getting activated. That's weird. So you can see here, all we have to do is pull off a command and that comparator will light up and then it can do that. All right, let's move on to some different clock types. Here we have the hopper clock. This is the first one I'll talk about. I have a lot of uses for the hopper clock, and a lot of map makers have said the set block clock or the fill clock has replaced everything. I completely disagree. Hopper clocks are great for certain instances. For one, they are a lot slower, so you can do more things at a specific pace a lot easier. You can alternate, which is kind of cool. But the way they work is with the hopper, anytime there's an item in there, so we're just going to toss this comparator, it will activate that. And a clock is basically just somebody turning the signal on and off and on and off. It's not we're telling time, although there are Minecraft clocks. If you know what I'm talking about here, we have those clocks. But actually, that's what you should put in there. You should put a clock in there. There we go. Okay, so we have a clock inside that clock. But basically, what it's going to do is because we can have different commands on here, and you'll see if I do a say hi command, it'll just constantly fire it. You know, it's got a nice steady pulse there. And the reason we want to do that is because we want to have some sort of wireless detection with a lot of different mechanisms in Minecraft. So if I wanted to test for a player who's walking by here, let's say we want to have them walk. I'm just going to put a sponge block there, right there. I'm also going to place it here just so that I can show you this little trick here. If I place a block here and I'm looking at it with the cursor, you can see here this is the 22, 64, and 44. Those are the coordinates of that spot there. But also, we can do a command like we could do like a set block or something like that. And if you press tab, I guess you have to press space, tab, space, tab, space, tab. It'll actually give you the coordinates pretty quick that way. But we're going to test for a player right where that block is. We're going to test for we can test for anybody if we want. And this is where we're going to put another argument in here. We're going to test for somebody to be at that spot. And basically we're going to do that. Now if we're testing at that spot and we can find somebody right now, there is somebody because I'm here, even though I'm not at that spot, I'm here, we're testing at that spot. Yes, there's a person in the world. So if we want somebody to only be activated on here, we have to do something like put a radius command in. If I put a radius of 0, it's not going to test for anybody until, boom, there we go. We are right there. So we have to be on there because this argument here says, yeah, we can test there, but also you have to have somebody within 0 blocks of that block. So basically you have to have them exactly on that section right there. So that's kind of how that little argument works there. What is the downside to the hopper clock? It's a little bit slower. I think it's a little bit laggier than the set block clocks. The problem I've had is when you unload a section, I've actually had to duplicate an item. And if you put 2 of the same items in, you can stop a clock. There. Oh, no. Oh. I can't do it. But anyway, you can stop a clock and then basically you'll have one off. So I've had that happen to my map where it's just constantly been on and there was no test for happening. But test for is, a lot of people don't use test for anymore. I still think it has some uses. Anyway, let's move on to the next clock. All right, this is the comparator clock. I love this clock. I don't care what any map maker says. Yes, they do have a lot of particles. Yes, they can cause some lag. I think they are really cool. especially because they're pretty fast and they are really reliable. For me, I've been told differently by people I respect, but I have never had a comparator clock fail ever. If I unload and then reload the chunk, it never has failed on me. I love them. I have no problem with them. And you can see it's pretty fast. If I just do a say command here, say hi, it's a lot faster than the hopper clock over here. So I use this a lot when I started making maps because actually it's before set blocks. So that was at one point I think the fastest clock you could have, and you could do things like if you had different commands here, you could add that on there, and then you could test for at E type equals item. We could also do test for at A, and what we're going to do is add another argument here. I'm going to test for my game mode at adventure mode. And then also I could do a test for at E. I'm just going to test for game mode creative. I think that's 1. So I'm testing for an entity, but I'm also an entity. And what we can see here is with the comparator, I already had one in my inventory. We have game mode 1, test for game mode 1. Maybe I have to test for A. I know what the problem is. It's actually not fast enough, or it's not far enough away. So that's the one thing. You have to have it a little bit further away depending on how you do your clock. But I'm just going to test for myself again at E M equals, what was it? I think it was 1. I think it was 1. There we go. Now it's on. So it found me here. We're constantly flashing that command. It'll go off basically immediately when I go to game mode 2. There we go. We're testing that command. And what was the other thing? Oh, an item. So if I drop an item on the ground, there we go. So it's pretty fast. It's almost instant. Like it's really not that slow. But there are a lot of particles in here. If I press F3, you can see. Look at my particles. They're constantly flashing. So it can cause some lag. But one thing I like to use with it is this Yesperian. I call it Yesperian after Jesper the end. I'll put this in the description. All the commands are in the description every episode, the paste bin. And I've got a XP item spawner here. It's going to spawn, I'll just briefly go over this. But basically what it's doing is with XP, it doesn't actually cause any lag or any errors in the Minecraft. I used to use items, but that would cause problems in the console. I turned that off, and we want to put a pressure plate. So I'm going to put one there. And what's going to happen is this here is an XP spawner, and it actually punches down that. You can see it punches down that pressure plate. But because the XP orbs are being spawned at basically one is that a tick? I don't know. But basically it's almost immediately ready to despawn. You can set it so that it's ready to die, the XP orb. It automatically dies, and we're only allowing them to spawn every once in a while. Like we're only allowing them to spawn one at a time. So there's always one dying and being spawned right there. When I get in range, the reason I love this is because I still maintain, I've had this argument with other map makers, I still maintain it's always best to not run a clock when you don't need a clock. Why have a clock running all the time? I realize that some people believe fill clocks are legless. I can tell you right now, they are not, from personal experience. I always try to not run a clock if I don't have to. But I do love this here. I do love it. Alright guys, the last two types here are the set block clock and the fill clock. These are the main clocks that I use. There are other clocks like repeater clocks and stuff like that. And these are the massively popular ones now in 1.8 that pretty much everybody uses who's been working with a lot of command blocks and stuff. They are really great, and I use them more than any other clock. I don't think they are the best use for every clock. I definitely have uses for the hopper clock and the comparator clock, but I use these clocks a lot because they're pretty. They're almost legless, and I don't care what anybody says. They can lag. They absolutely can lag. I've experienced it myself. I don't want to have an argument about it, but they are pretty legless most cases. The only difference between a set block clock and a fill clock, you may have heard those terms before, is that it's just a fill clock just uses a bunch of set blocks. But the way it works is the top one here is going to set a redstone block below, and the bottom one's going to set any block you want. I pick clay. You pretty much want an opaque block just so you don't have a lighting update. But I pick clay because it's 4 letters. Then I realized log is even better because it's 3 letters, but just to type out a lot easier. And for some reason, I still doesn't make sense to me. But because it's so fast, this sets a block which activates this, which replaces it, which I think does a block update, which then resets it there. The game is actually firing this off so fast. Just to show you, if I do a say hi command, you'll see it's like so fast. Like, I think people have said it's 20 hertz, which makes, I don't even know what that means. But it's super fast. It's basically the fastest clock. I don't think there's a faster clock that I know of. The fill clock is the same thing, but the difference is you can add a bunch of commands on the same thing. So if I wanted to test for, if I wanted to, let's see. Oh, yeah, I got to put the commands there. It works the same as the comparator clock with the dust, but we don't have the particles. That's why it's a lot less laggy, and we don't really have any block updates. But you're constantly checking that there. Let's do some test for us here. So we have our beautiful comparator, and we're gonna test for. Let's play a little fun here. Let's test for a player in game mode. What do we want? We're going to test them for game mode survival. Okay. So, as soon as we go to survival mode, game mode survival. Oh, did I do that right? It's not. I got my numbers mixed up. I usually type the letters. So it must be, I spelled it wrong. I'm pretty sure it was 0. Okay, let's go back to survive. Yeah, there we go. So it's found us. As soon as I go to something else, yeah, we're not there. And actually, I had somebody ask me about this a while ago. Now, keep in mind, when you set them all up like this, you've got to have some sort of block in the middle here because you don't want your output to activate. Because that, if you have a command block here, oopsie, if a command block here and you have them here, that output is going to actually activate the one beside it. So good practice is to place some sort of block there that redstone or the comparator can fire off to the next one. And what we're going to do is when we find somebody in survival mode, we're gonna say tell raw. And again, with these arguments here, we're going to say to anybody in survival mode, so mode equals 0, tell raw at 8, we're going to say you can't be in that mode. I guess it worked better with creative. We should probably do that with creative. Creative is 1. So we are going to say anybody in mode 1, you can't be in that mode. And then we are actually going to change their game mode to, let's change them back to survival mode. So game mode S at, game mode S at anybody who's in mode equals 1. So there we go. So what we have to do is, because that comparator is lit up, we could probably just break it. And then, there we go. It says, oh, what's going on here? It did not do our tell raw. Why is it not doing our tell raw? Let me just check that. Must have something wrong. Tell raw m equals, you can't be in that mode. I think I have this right. It did, so maybe it is actually pulling off too quickly. So let's just move that one down there, and we will put the game mode up right there, and that should change me over there. So I should be able to do this again, and there we go. You can't be in that mode. So actually, it does depend on how you place that, because it will activate depending on where the command block is, that command first. So this is kind of an anti-cheat system. If you go to, no, you can't be in that mode. I could put a sound if I wanted to. Anything you put in those selectors, in those, oh man. Okay, break that. I can't go into creative mode. Anything you put in here will activate that based on whatever it is. So you don't have to be afraid of putting any player here, because it's only going to affect any player who's in this mode, not the nearest player to the command block. So once you have that all set up, you can just add a bunch of different command blocks across here and have whole systems of test fors or whatever you want to do. We can test for a player at a certain location with a certain score. There's a lot of different things we can test for. I think that is going to be on another episode, maybe with scoreboard systems and things like that. Hopefully that is a little bit helpful for you. I did want to just say, with these sort of arguments here, they do eliminate a lot of test for commands, which is great. But they are so fast on a set block clock, and this is sort of the downside to the set block clock. In some cases, they're too fast. So what we could do is we could do a game mode S at a... oh, this is not going to be good. We can't do that quite yet because I need to set up the other side here. But let me just set this up. I'm going to go... I'm going to put a tell raw at a... And it doesn't really matter what it is. We'll just say hello, I guess. Say hello. Really what should happen when I change to, let's say, game mode S at M, at AM equals... let's do it in adventure mode. So anytime we go into adventure mode, it's going to change us to survival mode, and it really should activate this comparator and then do this tell raw command. But because if I go into game mode 2, because it's so fast, it's changed me to survival. It's changed me to survival there. So even if I go to game mode 2, it's changed me. The clock has actually changed me. But because the set block is so fast, it can't actually even pull off a signal and then activate your command out there. So that's why if you're using set block clocks or fill clocks, you want to use an actual test for if you're going to do this, or a slower clock, something like that. I've experienced that problem. It's just so fast. That's one of the downsides to it, but it's also a good side to it because you want a fast clock. It really depends on what works best for what you want to do. So I think that's about all we want to talk about today, and I will see you next time, guys. And I think we're going to talk about some scoreboard stuff, maybe. Of course, leave your questions in the comments. I love hearing those. But enjoy your Minecrafting, guys. I hope that helps you a little bit in your map making, and we'll see you next time.